Quickly through my bio. So 15 years in the restaurant industry. On the bottom left is when I had Lyme disease and I had half my body paralyzed, like down a line down the middle, and I had to wear an eye patch and earplugs while I cooked because I didn't have health insurance. That was a lot of fun. But I started working in restaurants that were locally sourced and got interested in all the things that were coming in that I saw were growing locally around me. Left the restaurant industry, started writing my book series. This is the first one, which is basically targeting the gardening community, plant-based community, survivalist community. It's like the plant-based portion of my life, so I wanted to split it up. And the next one I'm writing is going to be fauna, and that will be basically like Flora with meat. Then during the pandemic, I filmed my show. Basically, a videographer called me and said, hey, no one is filming. Do you want to make a show? And I just did it with one videographer and me, and basically just marketed it through my Facebook page. And we did a whole series. It was on Apple TV for a few years. And then Chefs vs. Wild. I'll let you know. Yeah, I definitely won, and it's a good watch. So what I do now is very different than when I was running restaurants. I will do consulting. A lot of what I do is just education and educating the general public. That might be in person, it might be online. I do a lot of writing. I do all my own photography, so every image that you see in this is going to be mine. Ethnobotanical and mycological research. So one of the most important things that I do is that I look for these ingredients that I work with. A lot of times they're plants, they might be mushrooms. I can't open up a cookbook and like find a recipe for how to cook a lot of these things. So what I found that I needed to do when I was writing my first book, I scrapped the first manuscript and then I just started over. That's why it took me like 3.5 years. But maybe I'm looking at a study funded by the EU for looking at all the kinds of different wild plants that are eaten in the Mediterranean. And I'm looking at tables and graphs and charts and looking at Latin names. So Latin names are extremely important in my work because not only am I working with chefs and the general public, I'm also interacting with scientists, botanists, and mycologists. So I look at historical ways that these things have been cooked, and then I take that, put it into my brain, and figure out a way I can distill that for the general public, so first that they don't kill themselves or their family, and that they have a good tasting meal, and they learn more about where they live. It gets them outside, and it teaches them something that they can use for the rest of their life. It's really a beautiful thing. And then, of course, social media, film, events. I probably cook at like 4 or 5 events. I do charity dinners too, but I'm not a charity, so I definitely charge a lot for them. Public speaking, run-of-the-mill stuff. But it's a lot of different things, and it's very dynamic, very, very different from when I was in restaurants. So the demo here, really the talk and the kitchen is preparing some things that they're going to bring up to you. They didn't know that we were going to have some food for you, so it might all show up at once in kind of a jumble. So we'll just kind of figure that out. But I was like, if I was a chef and I was going to come and listen to something, what do I want to know? I'm not here to show you how to make a salad or anything like that. I want you to taste some really cool stuff. And I have some things here. This is just a snapshot of a few of my favorite ingredients and some of the stories behind them. So North American truffles. This is going to be something that you are going to hear more about. Wheat lacoche. This is corn smut. And I have a friend who is growing large amounts of this. Nettles, a really common plant that I serve at every single one of my dinners. So you're going to get a little cup of my nettle soup. And then black walnuts. And I got to tell you, black walnuts, there's bags on all of your tables that you've probably seen already. Those were all nicely donated by the company that I work with, Hammond's Black Walnuts, which is the only company that you can buy black walnuts from. So there's a bunch of things in there. First, North American truffles. So you can see 2 here. On the left is the pecan truffle, and on the right, this gorgeous red truffle is the one that you want to remember. So truffles are really a neglected science. I mean, mushrooming in general, mycology is a neglected science. I mean, it hasn't been since like the last 100 years that people have really taken an interest in it. And before that, it was like basically within botany was like this little subset, like, oh, here's a couple little mushrooms. Well, the science is progressing rapidly. And just like, okay, like in the 50s, French chefs started to come over and they complain like, oh, they don't have the mushrooms here. They don't have our mushrooms. Well, actually, we have every single mushroom essentially that they have in Europe. But when the continents split, we have subtle variations. And then it just took people going out and finding the mushrooms to show the chefs that, you know, hey, actually, we have all those same mushrooms here. We actually have mushrooms they don't have also, and vice versa. Truffles have been even more neglected in the science realm than mushrooms have, and what's happening now is like, it just fills me with chills. It is extremely exciting. So within the last, 15 months, we have had 3 new species of truffles that are of culinary value. And that part is extremely important because there's tons of truffles. Not all of them are gonna taste good, but we have had 3 new species introduced to science just in the last year and a half. All of culinary value. So you have Tuber canaverolatum, that's named after the dog that found it, Canaver. Tuber cumberlandense, I don't know where that came from. Tuber rufum, this one I'm super excited to work with. They found it, I want to say they found it in Quebec. I've been talking with a researcher in a company in Quebec and the University of Ontario. They're kind of working together. A lot of good mushroom researchers in Ontario. Tuber rufum, they call it the trou fumé, because it tastes like smoke. And I know what that is going to taste like. They're sending me some this year. It just got discovered last year. They're gonna send me some this year. There's another truffle in Europe that's a weedy truffle called Tuber brumali. And if you are ever looking for a budget truffle that's awesome, you can get 4 ounces of Tuber brumali for about $90. And that's enough to do a lot of stuff with. And it's related to Tuber melanosporum, the most expensive French black truffle that's now being grown on the West Coast and in Australia and in Chile, but it is a quarter of the price. The flavor is different though. There's a little bit of truffle, and mostly it's like eating a mouthful of peat, like scotch. I call it the smoky scotch truffle because the aroma of smoke and scotch is unmistakable. So very, very cool truffle. But the science, you can see, this is neglected science because we're just discovering now we have all kinds of truffles here. Again, just like the mushrooms, we didn't even think there was truffles in North America. Now, if you know anything about North American truffles, you might know about Oregon white truffles, Oregon black truffles. They kind of suck. They're okay. The price is right, but for what you get, you just need to know the species a little bit. There's also the pecan truffle. Pecan truffle, it's going to be growing down in pecan orchards, but also it's going to have a range that will go up to Ontario. Basically, all these truffles I'm talking about, a number of them are going to have a range from Ontario down south to Kentucky. So these will grow in pecan orchards. They taste like pecans and truffles. Very cool. They're still very expensive because not a lot of them are being found, but here's the cool thing. Last year in Wisconsin, my friend who's the president of the Mycological Society was picking these in northern Wisconsin with dogs. So what's going on here is like, just like the mushrooms, we didn't think there was North American truffles. There's North American truffles in every state park in Minnesota, from Ontario south to Kentucky, but no one's finding them because they weren't going out with dogs. So now people are training dogs. I have 2 friends training dogs, one in Oregon, one in North Carolina, and they are now finding new and different truffles. And as more of these come into the market, the price is going to fall. So these taste like pecans and a little bit of truffle. They're very cool. Then we have Emea gigantea. This is also known as the Appalachian truffle or the Blue Ridge truffle. This one tastes like Parmesan cheese and truffle mixed. Very cool. Very hard to find. But as they find more of these and people train more dogs, once we get more dogs out in the field, there's going to be a lot more truffles. Then another one, so like our West Coast truffle, this is Leucangium, the Oregon black truffle. It tastes like green apples. It tastes like green apples. There's like no truffle in it at all. And they're so wet, if you squeeze one in your hand, it's going to just give off juice. They're really, really good with oysters, raw oysters, put on top of an oyster. Very, very good like that. But the creme de la creme, the prize, is, this is Tubercana liculata, also known as TCAN to truffle enthusiasts, and this is the one that everyone is excited about. So the reason that this one is exciting is because of the mycelium and how it grows. It is extremely vigorous. So that means that it's primed for cultivation. So what you have, what's been going on over the past 10 years, actually we found this, it was found in like the 1950s, and James Beard actually ate it, pronounced it delicious, and then we forgot about it for like 50 years. Now people started finding more of them. Another name is the Michigan Red. So I should tell you something too. This is grown in Michigan. And I talked to a person in Michigan the other day. She said, you need to look at old growth spruce trees with squirrel activity. So right there, I know there's like a Disney movie in here somewhere. Squirrels are caching truffles, and the possibility exists that I can go out with a walking stick and find thousands of dollars of squirrel truffles. They taste like garlic and cabbage. It is the most bizarre thing. But there's tens of thousands of trees inoculated with this truffle specifically that are being planted over the last few years. I've not been able to get these. I got my first one last year, but I wasn't able to get them for years because there was a couple people, there was like 3 people in North America that knew how to pick these. And someone was buying all of them because they're trying to make spore slurries because they knew that how the mycelium grows on this thing, that it's going to be primed for cultivation. So within the next 5 years, you're going to start seeing this on restaurant menus. And there's also the University of Quebec and the University of Ontario, and the people I'm talking to in Quebec are developing an oil that you're going to be able to taste, so you can taste the weird garlic cabbage flavor for yourself. Next, corn smut. Anybody ever had corn smut? Huitlacoche, Cuitlacoche, Aztec truffles. Fascinating, fascinating fungus. This is a mushroom in the genus Astylago, and it's a type of mushroom that will infect grasses, and it turns different parts of the grass into a mushroom. So if you're a mushroomer, you've probably had a dream of growing Huitlacoche. If you're a mushroomer in the Midwest, like I grew up around cornfields and soybeans, my dad's a commercial farmer. So I have a friend who's doing just that. His name's Mushroom Mike. He's from Milwaukee, and he is now supplying a lot of restaurants around Chicago and all over the place. This is from the first year that he was growing. And you can see that we were boxing things up, and he was boxing it up, the Huitlacoche on the cob, and he was selling these boxes. It's probably like 8 ounces when you take it off. He's selling them for like $30. So that's pretty expensive. I showed him that you can cut the mushroom off the cob and then freeze it. It freezes like a dream. And now he just bought a ton of freezers, and he will freeze it immediately, vacuum seal it, and then he can just ship it off, and it's good to go. So he gets a much better yield. And it's really been interesting to see his business kind of take off over the years. So now, out of 7 acres in 1.5 months, how many pounds of corn smut off the cob do you think he's getting 3 years into it? 10,000 pounds. 7 acres, 10,000 pounds of mushrooms. The only tricky thing is that he got an order for 10,000 pounds last year. And it's something that I see, and it was from Mexico, right? So it's so strange that my friend is growing, a traditional Mexican ingredient and then like selling it back to restaurants in Mexico. You can't make that stuff up. And if you've never had a Huitlacoche quesadilla, they're fantastic. But the Huitlacoche in the can it's from Mexico, and the species of corn is extremely important. Sweet corn makes kernels that are too small. Field corn is better, but in the Mexican Huitlacoche that's sold, if you go to a Mexican market, you see it in the store, it is a very high percentage of field corn pieces, which are like starchy, woody crap. So the stuff in the can is not that great. Next, nettles. So this is something that is a little bit more difficult to source if you're in a restaurant, but it's also something that's super common. And the reason that I include them is because every single dinner that I do, I basically serve nettle soup at it because it's so popular. And without fail, I can have all kinds of things on the menu. I remember the first time that I served nettle soup, I had the truffles, foie gras, the caviar, all kinds of stuff, hands down, unanimously. What do you think is the favorite dish? Nettle soup. Every single time. And all around the world, you have different varieties of nettle soup. This is my version. It's a little bit of oil. They're heating some up for you right now. The logistics here are a little interesting. It should be here any minute, just a little cup. and there's a little bit of ramp oil on it. So what you're going to taste here, it's not like spinach soup or something like that. So the nettles specifically, and the specific species of nettle is important, they have almost a fishy quality. And that's something that you're going to see that's pronounced in West Coast species are going to taste way more fishy than this species. But you have nettle soups around the world. This is one of the most commonly eaten and cultivated and highly nutritious plants around the world. So in Italy, you have zuppa di ortiche. So this is zuppa di ortiche from my book. They put pasta in it, they put a little tomato in it, and the nettles are chopped and they are not pureed. Then Scandinavia, on the right, you're going to have it with chopped egg and maybe a little bit of roe. You can tell I like putting green oil on soup. And Scandinavian or French, you're going to have soup de ortie, and it's probably going to have a little bit of creme fraiche. One of my favorites is the Turkish version, and that's going to be esirgen korbasi, and that one is dairy-free, but it's garnished with, this is such a great tip if you have a green soup, and really like almost any soup, they put sizzling hot garlic butter on the soup before it is served. Unbelievable. That one's with green garlic, actually. Then black walnuts. I mean, everyone knows black walnuts. I mean, well, everyone around here. I mean, they're such a common tree. And like I talked before in the panel, a sweet spot for me is really when there's an ingredient that people know about, that they know exists, but maybe are not too familiar with. And black walnuts really hit a sweet spot there because so many people know what they are, but they look at it as a weed or something like that. And I also talked about how popular black walnut ice cream is. Like one of the most popular ice cream flavors of all time. That one is made with butternuts, which are actually a species that is a felony to collect in Minnesota, and because they have something called black walnut canker. And interestingly enough, if you put them into ice cream, the ice cream tastes like a mouthful of bananas. It's bizarre. Once again, all the bags are from Hammond's. So Hammond's is a company, it's the only company in North America that sells black walnuts. And most of my chef friends, they'll be like, how could I crack black walnuts? I'd never have time to do that. And most people don't know you could just order them and have them shipped right to you. So in your bag, some of them have, I think some of the candied ones may have fallen out of some. There should be candied black walnuts in there. That is like one of my favorite things to do. You got a pastry chef, just tell her to make croquant. I take the black walnuts, I add a little bit of sugar, I cook it in a pan, just stirring it by hand. Eventually those oils are going to come out of the black walnut because they're also an oil crop, which is why you have a bottle of oil on your table. And then you're going to get that smell like almonds roasting at the state fair in the big tumbler. And it's a great way to serve black walnuts where if people would not like the flavor of them raw, when you toast them, it's completely different. And it covers up kind of that, like, it's almost like a floral musk taste that they have. And if they've been refrigerated or stored, I always give them a little bit of toast. I toast them a little bit. But when black walnuts are fresh out of the shell, and any nut that is fresh from the shell, they do not need any toasting at all, and they will be at their best flavor straight from the shell without toasting, which is kind of contrary to how I was brought up cooking in kitchens. But that's often because nuts are stored and they are going to be tasting a little stale, so they need to be toasted. There's also flour, which I think I didn't know exactly what they're going to send. I said, give me 70 gift bags. Then 9 cases of stuff showed up. The flour is actually, it also doubles as a protein powder, and I have a friend, he's got a show on the Outdoor Channel, it's great, it's called Wild Fed. He sells it as a protein powder because black walnuts are the highest protein content nut in the world. And if you're wondering about the price, they're kind of comparable to cashews, way cheaper than cracking them yourself, or like me, giving your dishwashers nut crackers and expecting them to crack hickory nuts by hand. But very cool company. They've been in business for like 80 years, still family owned, and they're down in Missouri, which is Greene County, Missouri, which has more black walnuts per capita than any place in North America. Just a really cool company. And they have all kinds of cool stuff, but mostly I just get the large, big pieces. One of the things that I've done with green nuts, so the entire black walnut tree is edible and has all kinds of historical culinary uses. The green, unripe nuts are used to make liqueurs all over Europe, and one thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to make like a syrup that I could make in drinks or use as a molasses. So what I do, this is it's a riff on a Korean method of preserving fruit called chong. And you basically take whatever it is and you pack it in sugar. So we pack the green walnuts in, you just use turbinado or some brown sugar. The water comes out, we put it in a jar, let it sit for like 30 days. There's a little bit of fermentation that happens, but not anything that's going to make it alcoholic. And then just like liqueurs made from black walnuts, you have to age the tannins out. So after about 6 months, you get this gorgeous molasses-like syrup made from the green nuts, which are super available, easy to make. This is something that I do make in quantity and sell, and there's a number of my friends that are selling this at farmers markets now. So black walnut milk. If you've made nut milk, it's just nut milk made from black walnuts. I take the nuts, you can use any size pieces. Hammond's actually has like little tiny chunks. I've used little tiny chunks, big chunks, and you can use anything. You soak them in water overnight, strain it off, and then puree it with fresh water, and it emulsifies and gets creamy, and it really, that initial soaking takes out some of the bitterness. One thing that's so interesting is that nuts from Missouri are bitter, and nuts from Minnesota are not bitter. And the variation due to region is it's just crazy in the variation in region. Like I said before, the nuts in Minnesota, Hammond's doesn't like to buy them because our shells are very thin and they want thick shells so that they can go through their equipment without crushing the nut meat. But this is one of my favorite things. I serve it warm too, but because it's hot outside, I was like, oh, we'll serve that cold. I serve the nettle soup warm. I put a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of maple syrup. And I mean, you talk about like from a cost analysis, it's so novel. I call this black walnut milk and cookies. So these cookies, I wanted to make a cookie that was like the soul of a black walnut and see how much black walnut can I fit in something as like a teaching example. So I just take the nuts and I grind them up into a flour. I take a little bit of oat flour or gluten-free flour, like a tablespoon or two per recipe, and a single egg. It's an amaretti recipe that I just put through a meat grinder and made something different. I cooked them in little brownie bite molds, and it kind of gets this perfect combination of crisp on the outside and like fudgy on the inside. But it's one of my favorite things to serve here, and just a perfect teaching example of the culinary uses of black walnuts, especially if you serve it warm, which I will when it's cold outside. It's okay, isn't it cool? Yeah, and so that preliminary soaking, it really calms the flavor, calms that flavor down, smooths it out, and then when you puree it with the fresh water, I mean, it's dairy-free, but it's rich. I mean, they're high in fat, and it just really is a nice, smooth way to enjoy the flavor of black walnuts that anyone will like. I serve this to children at a kind of a green energy event every year, and the kids would they would just put it on their cereal, right? Isn't that cool? And I'm not a pastry chef, but I've had enough pastry chefs get like neurotic and quit on me that I know how to make a couple things. So my next book is going to come out in 2026. I'm working on that this year. It's going to be fauna, so it'll be how meat intersects with wild plants, ways that meat is used with wild plants, and just leafy greens around the world. It's really an interesting proposition, writing a book on meat that's also basically a book on plants. I'm kind of figuring that out, how the manuscript is going to look right now. And I also have a calendar. So it's not a 12-month calendar. It's day to day. So basically, I don't know, 325 images and then like whole recipes stuck in there. Is basically a 20,000 word book manuscript that I jacked into a calendar. So that's ready for pre-order.